Hey everyone!
Training can sometimes seem like an exercise in futility. Learners go through a formal training only to steadily forget what they learned over time until you need to bring them back in for another formal training. Don't worry, it's not just you. This is the forgetting curve, the progressive loss of learning over time. No matter how great your training is, after a while your learners will remember less than half of it. That's expensive and time-consuming, but there is a way to overcome these challenges. Verizon is proud to present key learnings in bursting and boosting. You can use these techniques to enhance the learning experience and combat the forgetting curve. This methodology is backed by years of neuroscience research by Dr. Art Kahn of ATD Learn. A burst allows you to provide the learner with a learning moment prior to a formal learning event. Sometimes this is called micro-learning, and usually incorporates text, audio, or video content, accompanied by a question or two. A boost happens after a learning event or moment and combats the forgetting curve to increase retention and application. You're simply trying to get your learners to retrieve the information they've learned. Examples of boosts include polls and multiple choice or fill-in-the-blank questions. Today, you'll hear from 3 different learning and development leaders with 3 different business needs on how Verizon has used burst and boost methodology to help our learners succeed. Ready to start?
All right, guys, so how is everybody doing today?
Good.
Everybody having a good time, learning some good information to take back to the office? Yeah? Okay, well, good. I am too. My name is Marcus Medina, and I'm a learning architect with Verizon Wireless on the wireless side of our business. The interesting thing is that AT&T, or AT&T. That was an inspiration.
Unfortunate.
Actually, I planned to do that to get you all loosened up.
We have an opening in our company.
What's that?
We have an opening in our company.
Thanks, I'll talk to you after, okay? Anyway, so ATD asked us to present a little bit about our experience, our key learnings in burst and boost. So we're not claiming to be the experts in neuroscience, but I think we'll be able to share a little bit of our experience, and maybe that will help you if you're interested in introducing something like this in your business. So my name is Marcus Medina. I support go-to-market specifically, so I'm a learning architect, as we call it. And I'm essentially a project manager on the go-to-market team. So I support the development of training materials for all products and services that will ultimately launch to our consumers and business. It doesn't matter. All that stuff comes through us, right? So all of our training materials are created to support that and support our front line to be able to actually go out and sell, right, or service our customers. So in a second, I'm going to actually present a little bit about our experience, our first trial that kind of started us down this path of bursting and boosting. And mine is specific to wireless retail. In a minute, then a few minutes, I'll hand off to Kate Tonda, my peer. She'll share her experience with wireless customer service. And then she'll hand off to Dwayne Thomas, who's going to give us some of his experience or expertise in the experience that we've had on the wireline side of our business. It's kind of interesting the way Verizon works is that we have 2 separate entities or parts of the business, wireless and wireline. All right, sound like a good idea, guys?
Yep.
Okay. So as I said, I'm going to start off with our experience in wireless retail. So one of the things I wanted to do before I actually got into the details of the trial itself is I wanted to kind of share with you all a little bit of how we got to where we are, how we started down this path. So a few years ago, we implemented something at Verizon called Verizon Lean Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma. How many are familiar with that methodology or concept? Good amount. Okay, so basically it's a methodology that looks at your business and scrutinizes all of your processes, right, with the hope that you'll streamline. And you want to streamline because you want to save money, right? So that's ultimately what we did. When that was rolled out, a black belt, they call it, with the Lean Six Sigma team was assigned to learning and development. So that can be a little bit uncomfortable, right? If people are scrutinizing your processes, they're asking a bunch of questions, you start to question, am I doing things the right way? But it's all meant to obviously make the business better, right? So it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's a good thing. So the thing that we found is that our leadership thought that, hey, if we get a black belt assigned to our organization, we can really look at how we can better learning. So with this process, what we ended up finding was that we really did one thing really, really well. And, you know, of course, I'm saying this, I'm a little bit biased, but we found that we trained really well. Our work groups, our front lines would say the same thing. One of the things that we didn't necessarily do all that great, as you can see on the slide, was reinforcement, right? We didn't have really a formal reinforcement process, or at least not a consistent one across the business, right? So some teams may be doing some things, but formally we really didn't have this formal process in place. So what we would find is that we were more reactive, right? So we wouldn't train something and then we wouldn't just proactively go out and reinforce. We would most of the time wait until we found that there was some gap in the business. Maybe the training wasn't effective for whatever reason, maybe sales are not that great for a certain product or service that launched. And in a lot of those cases, of course, the business would come back to us and say, we want more training, right? So more training was more expensive, right? That's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to cut costs out of the business, just like I'm sure everybody in this room is very familiar with. It's always, what can you do that's more, but costs less, right? So how do you do more with less? So that's kind of the concept here. So we wanted to kind of take a look at the reinforcement process, if you will. And so we worked with Dr. Art Kahn to kind of test this or trial this concept. I don't know about you all, but we like to pilot, or you could say trial, I guess. I like to call it a trial. I don't know why, but we like to trial things at Verizon. We like to kind of dip our toe in the water a little bit, just make sure that everything works good on a small scale. And then we look at the wide-scale deployment after that, right? So over the course of a couple of years, that's kind of where we were. We started this in 2014. In 2015, I'll get into a little bit more detail, but we did kind of a little bit of background work. Wanted to see how we could deploy this to a larger scale. But in this particular trial, we wanted to work with Art Kahn because we had heard really good things about him. So he's, I don't know about you guys, if you've heard of him or if you've worked with him or read some of his articles, but we worked with him for a couple of different reasons. A, he's a genius. He's a neuroscientist that has a lot of data behind this concept of burst and boost, right? The second reason was that he had a method to deploy these bursts and boosts to a mobile platform. And that's something that all of our employees have, right? Especially at Verizon. We sell these devices. So every one of our folks in this audience either had a tablet or 2 tablets or a phone or 2 phones. And in the retail channel, we actually provide devices for those retail folks so that when they're out there selling to customers, they can actually show a customer, hey, this is the product or service that we're looking at. Let me show you how it works on my device, or let me show you how I use it. You can pull it out of the pocket or what have you. So that obviously made sense. It was a good fit, right? He had this mobile deployment method or system or back end that we could use. So in our trial, let me kind of give you a little bit of background on how we started. So with retail, we wanted to start out small, like I said. We weren't going to deploy it to our 30,000 folks right away. So we took about 800 folks, a good sampling of our retail employees. And we created 3 groups. The 3 groups you see on screen, one is a control group, one's a burst group, and then one's a boost and burst group. Say that fast, it's like 10. But anyway, we decided that we would break it up this way into 3 groups, and then we decided upon what our trial content would be. We just happened to have a new tablet that was launching, right? We needed to make sure that we trained our folks that they knew how to sell to our customers. So the control group was a group that basically would get the standard paper-based deliverables that we always had created, right? And then we'd send an assessment to them to see how well they retained the information. The second group, the burst group, was a non-standard training content group. So we delivered video training to these folks. They didn't get the standard stuff, right? We kind of shelved that for them. And we decided, well, we're going to push these video training bursts out to these folks via their handset. And then we're going to test them or assess them on what we did, right? What we sent to them. Makes sense, pretty easy. And then the burst and boost group was again a non-standard group. Would receive a couple of different things. They would receive the videos that the second group got. And they would also receive these boosts in the form of questions or polls. And the neat thing about this is that you can kind of customize this for your audience. So in our case, we decided that we would do, I think we did in these cases, we did a multiple choice, we did a poll, and then a fill in the blank. But you can do it however you want, right? It depends on the needs of your business, how you guys run, whatever it is that you're teaching. And then in this group, we also finished with an assessment. At the end, as you can imagine, we would take a look at the results. We wanted to see, exactly what happened or what the outcome was. And as I said, this was kind of just the very beginning for us. All right, so this slide kind of shows you the schedule. I wanted to show you this because I wanted you to get an idea of what the cadence looked like. Now, in this particular trial, we actually did, if you look at the bottom, we did 3 bursts, and then we did 9 boosts and 1 knowledge check. If I tried to fit all of that onto this slide, you all would be a little probably upset with me because it would be difficult for you to follow. So all I did is I put one series of things on here, but you would just repeat this same type of schedule out if we were to put the other ones on here, right? So we've got the day 1 product video, so we would send the video out on day 1. And then that same day, maybe a little bit later, we would send out this boost. And this boost would give them a very simple question about what it is that they consumed a little bit earlier, right? So whatever happens to be a key selling point or feature of that particular device. Then on day 3, what we did is we went back and we hit them again on their mobile devices, and we gave them a fill in the blank question. Very simple. We wanted to kind of mix it up, right? You don't want it to be the same all the time. And then on day 15, we went back to them with another multiple choice question, and we asked them again just about a feature or service that was important for that device. And then on day 24, we hit them with a knowledge check, and we wanted to be able to compare that knowledge check or those knowledge check results with the other groups. A pretty simple concept here. So we did that multiple times in this trial, as I said. There were a lot of different things that we needed to make sure that we got across to the field about this particular device. All right. So after we did that, we wanted to look at the outcomes. As I said, this was just us scratching the surface or getting started in this. So the outcomes were pretty simple. If you take a look at this, you see the control group, there was about 30% retention rate. With the burst group, there was about a 50% increase there at a 45% retention rate. And then with the burst and boost group, there was a 62% or 100% increase in retention. So we obviously made we kind of covered some ground, right, or gained some ground, I guess you could say. So that was enough information for our leadership to say, we want you guys to run with this, right? So we kind of, we tripped a little bit. On the back end, it was a little bit complex for us to do this because our system didn't necessarily communicate with our cons deployment or delivery method, or platform, I should say. So it was a little bit of a manual process, a heavily manual process for us to be able to pull all our data, get all our employees' information, feed that to our con, so our con could put it into a system and then send these out, right? So that was a little bit of a learning curve for us. But my point is that when we took this information back to our senior leadership, they were confident enough in the results that they said, let's do this some more. So what we did, because we knew we had these issues, we decided that we would deploy this to a friendly user group, right? So that was learning and development. That's our team. We said, everybody loves this stuff, right? Learning and development. So we're like, okay, well, if we mess up, we mess up. Let's take this to our group. So there were about 800 people in our group. So we deployed it and we told them, hey, try this out. Give us your feedback. Tell us if you think it'll work. Tell us how awesome you think it is, or maybe not. Maybe it's not awesome. You can tell us that too. But we wanted to deploy again so we could work out those back-end kinks so that when we went to deploy this on a larger scale, we were ready, right? So that ended up working out pretty well. We got really good feedback. It tends to be a higher percentage rate from the learning and development organization on our side, at least, because they want to be the early adopters. They think this stuff is great. They eat it up. So we did that. Then after that, we were happy with those results, so we decided that we would take it even further. And there just so happened to be a new process that we were rolling out. We rolled it out on a large scale to 30,000 employees. So that was great. One of the things that we know, though, is that if we get a lot of traction, is this sustainable from a vendor perspective? Because, again, right, we're trying to weed out costs. And if we were going to deploy this on a regular basis to our field, were we going to be able to sustain that if we were doing something like this on a regular basis? Because it was pretty costly. So the result was that we decided that we were going to try and bring this in-house. So we went to our development team and we said, hey, IT, learning development, let's pull this team together and let's create our own platform. One of the interesting things about that was it took several months. I said we started this in 2014. Over the course of 2015, it took us several months to build our own platform, test it, do some friendly user testing again, and we decided ultimately that, yeah, maybe we're not the experts in doing this, right? So we ended up ultimately landing with a vendor, and Dwayne's going to talk a little bit about it in his piece in a bit, but we ended up landing on QMindshare from Count5. They've been a great partner thus far. So we actually, as a matter of fact, are deploying this on a large scale to about 30,000 employees here in the coming 20th, so a couple weeks. So there's that. So after that, after we deployed to that larger group, we decided, well, we've got to go to places or teams other than just retail. How will this work for other groups in our business? So we had to look at customer service as well, and we had to come up with a way to deploy to the thin clients that our customer service group use, because those are pretty weak systems. If you're familiar with customer service thin clients, they can't do a whole lot, can't handle a lot of processing, right? They tend to be a roadblock, I guess you could say, in many cases, right? I see people shaking their heads, you know what I'm talking about. But we were able to work with Count5 to get that working. But that's a whole other piece. So Kate's going to talk a little bit about that and her luck with customer service. But before I hand over to her, I kind of wanted to just give you my lessons learned or key learnings from all of this, just in case you're interested. The first one, and if you're not, you have to listen anyway. Okay, so first, find the right delivery platform. So I kind of went into this, right? So we decided that we would go with Arcon. His delivery platform worked well. There was a lot of back-end manual work that we had to do. We decided to bring it in-house, try it out. It didn't work for us, and then we ended up finding someone that worked really well with us. So I think that's super important for you. The other thing is prep learners early and often. So it's obviously super important for the audience that this will go to be prepared to receive it, right? If they've never seen this type of platform before, do you think they're going to jump right on board? No? No, they aren't. When we found that, actually, that's one of the kind of the learning opportunities I think that we had, was that we didn't do a very good job at first of communicating that we were going to be training people like this. We kind of sent it out. Didn't get a whole lot of participation, and when I say a whole lot, it was really low actually. But it was enough, as I said, that we wanted to make sure that we continued on with this concept. So we knew that the next time that we did it, or if we went to deploy this on a large scale, we really needed to make sure that we prepped those learners, they were ready to accept this and willing and excited about it. So we knew that we'd have to do some type of big communication campaign. And as I said, we're going to be using this with 30,000 people here pretty soon, and we're starting that communication campaign this week. And we'll hit them multiple times over the course of the next couple of weeks to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do to prepare their systems, to log in, and be ready to receive the content this way. The third lesson learned that I wanted to share with you guys was get the leaders on board ASAP. What we found a lot of times, or find a lot of times, is that our frontline folks, especially in customer service and retail, which are the two main audiences for this, they are somewhat resistant to change. And they really tell us a lot of the times when we go out and we talk to them, you know, how do you like to learn? What is an incentive for you to do something? And they always came back and they said, I don't do anything unless my manager tells me I have to do it, right? Or if it makes me money, then they're money motivated in most cases if they're salespeople. So we wanted to make sure that we got our leaders on board. So that's another big piece that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. We're making sure that the leadership is on board so that they can reinforce this and they can go back to their folks and say, this is why I want you, or I think you should participate, right? And so they'll be helping drive participation on the business side. Okay. All right. So what questions? Well, actually, we'll hold those. Yeah, we'll hold questions until a little bit later. But I want to hand off now to Kate Tonda. She's going to share some information or data on her trial.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. As Marcus mentioned, my name is Kate Tonda, and I am Manager Learning and Development for our customer service channel. So I'm going to take you through what does this strategy look like now, not with salespeople, but at a site, at a center. Out of curiosity, how many people support customer service or have line of sight to customer service? And a decent amount of people. Fantastic. You're going to resonate with this. No. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about the strategy because for us, we have 22 call centers. And so a lot of times when we are like getting ready to do a pilot, we get a lot of like, well, how are you going to be able to compare? Because, center culture is different and leadership's different. And so on this one, because of the success we had seen with like Marcus's studies and, the buy-in from our leadership, we're like, okay, we're going to remove those variables. And so I would suggest for you, as you think about doing tests or pilots in your own business, the more you can control that pilot and control group and remove all those variables, the better. So what we did is we selected one center, and it was our Wilmington, North Carolina center. And what was going on is we were launching a new tool. And the other thing that's really important is what topic are you going to do? So for us, a tool made a lot of sense because we can measure like immediately. Are they using it? How are they using it? And we didn't want to wait 60 days, 90 days out. Like we wanted to be able to look at this pilot and control group pretty quickly. So that was part of our strategy. So we split that center right down the middle. Half of them went into pilot, and they were going to get the boost. That is hard to say. Lord have mercy. The burst and boost, plus the instructor-led training. And then our control group was just going to get like the traditional online training plus instructor-led training. Now, we were pretty confident we were going to be able to accomplish 4 objectives. We're going to reduce the training time, reduce the delivery resources, increase the knowledge retention, and improve business impact. So, pretty aggressive in the customer service channel. But I would be misleading y'all if I said that there were not some challenges immediately. I don't know about y'all, but when I heard Miss Bailey talking this morning about stagnant quo, I was like, oh, this woman knows my life. Like, it's like you read my mind because we immediately, especially in customer service, we start talking about reducing face-to-face time. And my CS ops partners, I swear to you, I can like feel them just like hunkering down. They're like, no, because they're not going to know. And we can't give them all this autonomy. Like, how will we track it? I mean, are you crazy? Like, are we going to have a tracking mechanism? How are we going to schedule this? So aside from like some immediate concerns on the deliverable set, the other item I would call your attention to, and you want to think about this depending on if you go with a vendor, is I got a little blindsided by IT because I don't know about y'all, but our IT group does not like it if we're talking about putting proprietary information on somebody else's server. No, they don't care for that. So you'll have to, possibly consider where are you going to house this source content, like, especially if it's proprietary nature. And then the big one, because, Marcus, again, he has the saucy channel over here with retail talking about how they have handsets and mobile devices and all this and that. Well, in customer service, we're not saucy like that. We have desktops. And so we had to figure out, like, how are we going to get this to the customer service representative? Now, I don't know if you are a Verizon customer, but I'm sure you can appreciate that we don't, let them have mobile phones while they're taking care of your billing inquiry. And, we're definitely not perpetuating, updating your Facebook status or something like that while they're handling your concern. So we did end up with a desktop solution that would be delivered through email. But I'm here to tell you what I would do is proactively, you know who those people are, you know what they're going to come up with in terms of resistance, like write those down so you can head those off at the pass. And then figure out who are your early adopters and call them one-on-one ahead of time and like plant those seeds so that you have that advocate when you start to position it to the larger business. So what did we actually do? I mentioned to y'all that it was a tool. Right, so we're doing this tool enhancement. So we did a something a little different. You're going to notice, you saw in our video too, that we had the burst and boost, and then you had the instructor-led training, like in between, sandwiched in between. But we didn't do that, and here's why. Because remember, one of our objectives was to reduce the face-to-face time. So we're like, we're going to take that instructor-led training, and we're going to analyze it. We're going to determine what are all of the pieces that the trainer would just stand up in front of the room and be like, click here, step 1, step 2, do this, this is how you access. And we're like, we're going to take all those out. We're going to remove them. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to create those as our micro-learning, as our 4 burst moments. Then we're going to follow each of those with at least one boost. So we use a variety. We use videos, we used like system demos. We tried to do some cool stuff with the system demo and tie it into our call handling model. And then we would just follow with a variety of things too. Multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, polling questions. And all of this, notice this timing, it's only 120 seconds or less. So you have, the 4 bursts, the 6 boosts, you have it over a 9-day period, 12 minutes or less in terms of timing. Then it all culminated with their knowledge check, and after they attended the knowledge check, they then were scheduled for that shortened instructor-led training. So what did this look like? So remember those aggressive goals that we had put up in as part of our strategy, as part of selling this to our executive team? So we did a pretty good job achieving those. So the first was the time reduction, which we saved 30 minutes. This is going to tie forward a little bit to the cost savings, but not only was that 30 minutes less of training time, but it was instructor-led training time, which if you're all about those dollar bills, that is where you're spending a lot of money as a business, right? Because if you can eliminate that need for a delivery resource, that can be substantial cost savings, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Improved knowledge retention, this one really hit home because one of the goals, of course, is to have it where they're remembering it. Like training's expensive, for getting information over time. So you can see our pilot group got their knowledge assessment before they went to the ILT. Our control group got theirs right at the end of the ILT because that's when they got their knowledge gain. 92% was the average score for the pilot compared to 79%. But what's even more startling is 14 days after the face-to-face experience, we did a second knowledge check. And look at that control group, y'all. 72%. And our pilot group held on to more information. So they had an average score of 91%. So very promising. So right now, we're taking less time and we're remembering more. That's already sounding good. But if we talk about the money, we had over 35% cost savings. We fully loaded the costs for the development on the pilot group and on the control group. So we fully loaded the development costs and then also included what it would cost in terms of execution. So you can see $28.61 for the pilot, $44.33 per learner. Now, business impact, we wanted to perform better than the control group. We had some mixed results, but I'm still very pleased with them because we performed at least the same. So we looked at 3 things: tool utilization, how are they using it, and it was equivalent, approximately 80%. We looked at some of the challenges through call auditing, again, about the same. There wasn't one group standing out compared to the other. Where our pilot group did perform a little bit better was in tool efficiency, which, again, we'll take it because tool efficiency means we're spending less time, hopefully getting to customer resolution quicker. And I know y'all are customers, and that's important to you. You want to get off the phone. We love it when you call us, but we're happy to let you go as well, right? So I'll share with you our lessons learned so that, my mom always told me, don't make the same mistakes I did, try to learn from them. So hopefully by sharing these, you guys won't make the same mistakes. So customer service. We did not do dedicated time. Whoa, that's like culture shock for us. I don't know how it is for your all's organizations, but we schedule offline time for customer service. Our reps, they didn't like that. They hated that part. So they felt like, it was just really hard for me to multitask. And again, there's this balance between you're serving the customer, but you're also being expected to complete this, but we're not giving you offline time. The other thing was with the email deliverable, which if you can avoid email, I would. If you can't, or if we were ever going to use email again, we would do something proactively to set up rules, because they get a lot of email too, and it's hard, right? That gets kind of lost. So I believe that if we did the offline time and the email rules, if that was the route we take, we'd be able to increase our performance even more, as well as our participation. I will share with you, our participation for supervisors was 90%. I was pretty happy about that. That's promising. Now, our representatives, they were lower. They were at about 60%, completion of everything. However, that was twice as much as our other case studies. So with making these small changes, I believe we could get that up into the 90% as well. And then the other one I would just share with y'all is level set expectations. So we intentionally did a layered approach. That was the plan, was to have all that pre-learning, bursting, boosting happen, and then have that shortened ILT. It's a little bit of a culture change for us as well. They were like, oh, we really would like to have that immediate practice. Well, that would defeat the purpose, and our metrics, our outcomes are telling us that that's maybe not the best approach. So I believe that through additional communication, leadership buy-in, like what Marcus talked about, I mean, definitely a success factor, as well as just more consistency with use would help us change that paradigm. So I think it's something to be aware of. Like, what's your culture? Like, how would people respond to that? Are these some of the same things that you would hear, and can you proactively address those as part of your own solutions as you move forward? So that's it for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne, who's going to take you through the third and final case study.
So we'll dance around up here on stage here in just a little bit. All right, so can everybody hear me okay? All right, well, good afternoon. I am Dwayne Thomas, and I am responsible for training technology on the wireline side. And over the next couple minutes, I'm going to share with you how we were able to reduce the actual paid time off that the company paid in 2015. Everybody get it? So how do we get from burst and boost to actually reducing paid time off? So let me give you my view of the world.
The first time someone spoke burst and boost smoothly.
I practiced, all right.
Hey, he's also the third one to go.
That's right. So I just kept saying it over and over and over. All right, so this is my worldview. We all know, everybody agrees that there's a forgetting curve, right? It's not a theory, it's not a hypothesis, it's fact, right? So the minute that somebody walks out of a training event or they close a self-paced course, they do what? They start to forget the content. The longer the period of time, the more they're actually going to forget. Now, there's tons of variables, but we know that people are going to forget this stuff. So anything that we can do as a training organization when we know there's going to be a long period of time between that training intervention and actual application, we can reduce the actual paid time off. I mean, it's not productive time. We paid them to do a job. We took them out of that job to train them. There's a real cost, an opportunity cost, and a fixed cost to the training. Anything that we can do to reduce the forgetting curve, we're reducing paid time off. It's not quite vacation because nobody really enjoyed the time off. All right, so here's our scenario. Every 4 years, Verizon has a really big event in the company. We have a very large employee base that is a union-based workforce. In fact, we've got about 34,000 of those in the Northeast right now. And last year, on August the 1st, we knew that those people had a contract negotiation that was going to terminate. So at that point, they could walk off the job and leave all of our customers in the lurch. So in preparation for that, every 4 years, the training department goes through this humongous effort to train a replacement workforce. And last year, we knew that we needed to train 13,000 people between the end of March and the end of July on 57 different curriculums. And those curriculums range in duration from about 3 days on up to about 4 weeks in terms of duration. So it's a very costly program. In terms of some of the program goals, so all this training, we really wanted to reinvent how we approached it. The primary goal for the training was customer experience. These people that were tapping on the shoulder inside of Verizon didn't apply to become a Fios installer. They didn't want to climb a pole. They didn't want to be a customer service rep. And in years past, it was always considered contingency training, which is a very painful word. So from the very beginning of the training and throughout the training, we reinforced, listen, our customers don't come to us because of our labor practices. They come and buy our services because we got some really freaking cool stuff, right? So we don't want them to feel the pain of our labor issues. A second goal for the training was we want to have a confident workforce. So at the time of need, when they needed to actually go into the field, we wanted to make sure that they felt confident in being able to uphold that customer experience. And lastly, we knew as the training department, and being smart, that if we didn't help them retain the knowledge, that we're going to fail in those first two goals, right? So how does this look? As Marcus already pointed out, we've got a vendor, and we've actually had them internal on the wireline side now for 4 years. They're called Count 5, and they got a wonderful little tool called QMindShare. And they've been very keen to point out to us the best practices that they had learned from their previous customers, which is you need to be brief, but you need to be brilliant with your interactions with your employees. So the recommended best practices is 2 or 3 times a week, no more than 5 minutes per engagement. Additionally, you want to be able to reinforce the content that they're asking questions on. So if you get it right, you get reinforcement. How many's ever answered question, multiple choice question, and got it right and surprised. So you're always providing reinforcement, right or wrong. And then lastly, if they get it wrong, the tool's going to automatically resend that information to make sure that you've closed the knowledge gap after you've remediated it. Okay, so we've talked a lot of mysterious stuff. We talked about burst and boost, we talked about training retention, but what does it look like from an employee perspective? And I thought that I would share an example of how this would look like. This is a non-exploding Samsung, because I think we're safe in here today. We're perfectly safe, so just bear with me. I couldn't bear to put an iPhone up there because I'm an Android guy. All right, so the tool actually works on smartphones, tablet, or PCs. You can log into all three of them. You would simply receive a notification, and in this case, once you log into the app, you would be watching a video. We're going to just skip the video just for the sake of time. You'd hit next. Then you're going to get a question. Once you answer the question, you're going to get remediated. I got it right, but you still see that I got a very lengthy remediation saying, reinforcing the reasons why I got the question right. And then the tool will also let you add it to your bookmarks and give you do a star rating to give some feedback back to the content author. This stuff isn't rocket science, but the cool thing about it is it's just using a couple very well studied phenomena, just spaced learning and just asking people questions to kind of reconnect those neural pathways that gets created during a training event. So we created roughly about 2,500 of these for our reinforcement campaign, and there was about 1.3 million answers generated for this retention campaign last year. So what were the outcomes? So if we back this thing up, so from a knowledge retention perspective, we would say that it's a success. So 74% of the questions were answered correctly the first time. What does that tell you? Forgetting curve already started. People are participating in this 3 to 5 days post-training event, and they're only able to hold on to about 75% of the information. That's just an average C. But because of the reinforcement, and then them seeing the question again, we were able to raise that retention up to 94% prior to concluding all the campaigns, which is about a 27% bump in performance. Was the workforce confident? Yeah, so right before August 1st, we surveyed the population and we said, how confident are you in being able to serve our customers? We also asked the people that had served, that had also served in a similar role in 2011, was it better, worse, or just the same? As you can see, the outside plant world, people felt about 89% confident to go do their role. And in terms of, did they feel better than they did in 2011? Yeah, 92% of them said, yeah, this is way better. We didn't dig into the reasons why. There's multiple contributing factors. The call center world, a little different. Not quite as optimistic, but still very optimistic with 72 and 73% respectively. But these are two very different learning experiences. For the outside plant, it was all in a central location, very hands-on. The training curriculum was 3 to 7 days. Outside plant, you were sitting at your regular desk, working 4 hours a day, doing your normal job, and doing training 4 hours a day for either a week of training time up to 4 weeks of training time. So it's apples and oranges, but still people were very confident. But did it drive the behavior that we were really after? Customer experience. So when we concluded the strike, which I'm going to tell you now, the big secret, the associates didn't go on strike on August 1st or September 1st or October 1st. They waited until April 1st of 2016. So we actually had people that had been through training 1 year prior, but still able to perform the job. And they were actually able to double the number of 5-star engagements we had with our employees during that strike period. So they're doing twice as good in terms of making a favorable impression with our customers over the associate workforce. All right, so some of the lessons learned. These are duplications of Marcus's. 2 of them are. The first 2 are, and this wasn't lessons learned from this experiment. This is things that the vendor Count 5 brought into us immediately. You got to get started early with the leaders. If you're going to go to market with any sort of retention campaign or engaging people differently, you have to get to them early. You've got to get their buy-in. They've got to understand the business impact and the way that you're going to engage people differently. You need to get started early with the employees. If you want to start something in November 1st, you got to prep the mind. And in our case, we needed to actually get them to not install, but to log into the tool that IT had already pushed to their desktop. So you need to be prepared well in advance so that you can increase your participation rate. And the biggest lesson learned specifically from this event was people can get too much of a good thing. We had keep in mind, we thought everybody was going to walk August 1st. So we continued running these campaigns up until the end of October. In retrospect, we should have stopped probably using just this technique alone for reinforcement sometime around the end of August or sometime into September. And we should have started doing some longer forms of reinforcement, whether they be self-paced content or bringing people into Adobe Connect sessions and doing some live demos and things. So that was our biggest takeaway for this specific campaign. All right, that's it. So that's all I've got from a presentation perspective. There's a little short URL down here if you guys want to log into this from your phone to kind of get an experience. It's a simulation of what it would feel like from an end user perspective to participate in this content. Two of the charming features of the tool that you're not going to see is the pop-up notification telling you something that you have something to attend to, and you're also not going to be able to get the I've got the question wrong follow-up because you're not actually logging into the system. All right, and with that, I'm going to sit down and let you guys pepper us with questions. Right here.
So I have two questions. One is for you. What was an indicator of fatigue? Was it just that you saw the performance starting to shift?
Yeah, we saw that people were starting to slow down in completing them, and we had over half our training counterparts were also, they had contingency assignments, and we heard mostly from them that it's enough's enough from that point perspective. And you?
Marcus, so talking about the delivery platform, I'm assuming you guys already had an LMS that you used. What about your current or your previous LMS or whatever you were using, what about that system didn't meet the demands of this burst boost model?
It wasn't that.
I'm use the mic.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know how to do that because I didn't when I is it not on? Okay. Guess it's not on. You guys hear me? Okay. So it wasn't our LMS. So it was more so that we were doing a trial with a vendor, right? And we wanted to make sure that we kind of had this proof of concept behind us before we did too much work on that side, because there would have been major integration for us to be able to output our content or our information or data over to the vendor. So we had to do a lot of things in a majorly manual way, as I explained. So we'd give them a major output from, at that time, we were broken up into several different areas across the United States. We had to work with our different areas to pull that data in. Then we had to pull that into a larger spreadsheet and send that on. And then a lot of times we found we had duplicates. So it wasn't an LMS issue for us. We used PeopleSoft LMS. It was more so just working with.
Oh, sorry. Reflex.
Not heard anything positive.
We'll go with the lady back here. Oh, there's two of you. Just one of you go.
Marcus, for you, you mentioned handsets. Did you actually ever use any personal devices to roll out this?
Great question.
And if so, what were the challenges of that?
Yeah, great question. That got shut down very early on in the conversation because we couldn't expect that our employees would use their own devices. That was one of the roadblocks for customer service, right? We couldn't deploy it the same way. We would like to, but they weren't provided with devices. We didn't give them free service, anything like that. So how can you expect an employee to use their own device? Yep.
We did, but we on the wireline side, we adopted a don't ask, don't tell policy on that. Went a little rogue.
Would you have a follow-up question?
No,
No, we really did. Just don't tell my boss.
Opt out?
Pardon?
Did you have an opt-in, opt-out for the personal device?
You always have a choice. So you could, I mean, our go-to-market strategy was a PC, but you could also install it on a mobile device if you chose to. Let's go up front here.
So your tool that you use, the Mindshare Q, does that work on a desktop as
Yes.
well?
Yes. Desktop.
Did you use
Tablet.
that?
We did not,
used
because we were partnering with ArtCon from ATD Learn for
Right.
our solution, and I don't know if at the time, and I know we have Mindshare in here, if there was a desktop solution that worked on our thin clients, but I will tell you, it just so happens this week that we are using Mindshare with a South area trial that we're doing, and they're getting queued this week. So,
Well, if you're in here, I'll talk to you later.
yeah.
All right. Back here.
Yeah, it seems that you're using this for, obviously, for knowledge and subject matter focus.
Right.
Can you envision any way that this sort of methodology could be used for skills? For maybe one of the reasons why it's the 70% versus the 90% of customer service is that there's a large part of that that is interpersonal, that's
Personally, no, I would say not. I mean, some of it is the hopes that the knowledge is a replication of what the skill actually is, especially in the outside plant. But there was no skill demonstration that we've actually been able to use it for. But I'm sure that Eric is here somewhere from Count 5. He should be able to. He's seen much more than what we've been able to leverage the tool for.
I would personally struggle with that only because, and that's why with ours, we shortened the ILT because that ILT then became exclusively skills practice. So, I mean, it was 30 minutes and there was no talking, no trainer talk time. It was just go time. We're just going to practice. I think it would be difficult. I mean, not impossible. You could maybe do some videos with pause points for response. I don't know. It would be not impossible, but I think that you would run a risk.
So 30 minutes reduction meant what, 10% reduction or?
The 30-minute reduction for us resulted in a 35%, over 35% cost savings. So
I'm saying that the time reduction in ILT, was it 30% or 10%?
oh, it was, I think it was, let me go back. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we had,
There is only
30, yeah, so it was 30 minutes off of a total of 75 minutes.
Of 75 minutes.
Yeah. And it was all almost exclusively the delivery element that was reduced. That's why the cost savings are so high. Because if you're just reducing time off the phones for us, that's still money in the pocket. But when you don't have to use delivery, then it's even more.
Okay.
Did you shortlist any other vendors besides Q Mindset?
When we started this 4 years ago, we kind of looked around and there wasn't really a lot of competition. There seems to be a little bit more competition now than there was 4 years ago. I don't want to give too much of a ringing endorsement one, but once you find the right vendor and you've got a partnership versus a vendor relationship, you don't go looking around. Back here.
Video. Very clever.
We did it in.
Yeah, we did it in-house. Yeah.
It's
Probably
it was
After Effects.
Yeah, it was After Effects. Thank you.
Anything else from this side? Yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you. So the participation rate could have increased if you had more leader impacts, you believe? What would you suggest?
I don't know if it was necessarily leader impact, because if you look at the leaders, we had such high participation from them. Now, I will tell you, obviously, leader support always helps. But I think that the biggest thing for the representatives was the challenge with the multitasking, because it's just so countercultural. I mean, we're talking about people who literally had, every moment of every day scheduled. So I think that, and then the fact that it got lost in their email, because they get inundated with email as well. Those two things alone, I think, would have driven it higher. And then, of course, leadership is, it's always critical, but I'm not led to necessarily believe that was the biggest factor, since the leaders had such high participation levels themselves. Yeah, great question.
All right.
That's Kate. You say you're using email. You guys are still using the same vendor. The email just replaced the pop-up?
No, ma'am. We were using, for our pilot, we're doing a pilot now with Q Mindshare, but when we did this pilot, we were using ArtCon and ATD Learnings. Yes.
So it did just kind of replace the pop-up, the email piece. It's just the, hey, we need you to log on and do this.
Yeah, there was no pop-up. It was literally just disseminated through their inbox. Yeah.
Which is one of
Not do it again.
Yeah, email.
If you can avoid it, I would not do it that way.
I can't afford it, but would love to.
All right, anything else? We got 1 minute. Anything? Okay. All right, thank you all for your time.